Welcome to Velvet Violence, where the glamour is real and so is the darkness underneath it.
I'm Marta. I like my stories polished, but never too clean.
And I'm Diliana, and I'm here for the moments when everything slips.
Together, we peel back the velvet and show you what's been hiding beneath it.
Let's get into today's case.
Hi guys, I just wanted to pop on here and tell you that we are not licensed investigators or lawyers. We're just here telling a true story in our own dramatic way. Everything is based on a publicly available information and personal commentary. So please, don't come after us. We've watched enough true crime to know how that ends. In the 1980s, in Sacramento, California, Dorothea Puente seemed like the person everyone would suspect. She was in her 50s, soft-spoken, often seen baking, chatting with the neighbors, even helping the elderly. Her home became a kind of a boarding house, a place where vulnerable people could stay. Many of them were older, struggling, or had nowhere else to go. But something wasn't right. Tenants would move in and then quietly disappear. At first, no one questioned it. These were people who didn't always have strong ties, people who could vanish without raising alarms. Dorothea always had an explanation. They moved out. They found somewhere else better. They went to stay with the family. And for a while, people believed her. But behind the house, in the yard, neighbors began to notice something strange. Fresh patches of disturbed soil, areas being dug up and covered again. Still, nothing was done, until one day, a social worker came looking for a missing tenant. Dorothea acted calm, cooperative, even helpful, but something felt off. Police eventually got involved, and when they started digging, they didn't find one body. They found several, buried in the yard, wrapped and hidden right outside the home. By the time it was over, multiple victims were discovered, all people who trusted Dorothea. And then, in a twist that feels almost unreal, while police were still investigating, Dorothea disappeared. She vanished. While police were still investigating, Dorothea disappeared. She fled, an elderly woman quietly slipping away, while authorities were uncovering a graveyard behind her house. She was eventually found days later, sitting calmly in a cafe, as if nothing had happened.
Oh my god. So, I think I've heard about this case, because a grandma serial killer.
Yes, it's quite popular, yeah.
Yeah, but I was gonna ask you, so let's start from the beginning and tell me about her childhood. Like, was there any red flags then?
Yeah, it was quite a lot actually, and the upbringing was not stable at all. She was born Dorothea Gray in 1929 near San Bernardino County, California. She was 6 of 7 children and raised in a very big, unstable household. She experienced loss at the very early on. Her dad died when she was only 8 years old. However, he wasn't a good dad at all. He was physically and psychologically abusing all the children. In psychologically, I mean, he took them all to the living room and said if they're not gonna behave well, he's gonna commit suicide in front of them. Her mom wasn't a saint either. She was a sex worker, but she also was very abusive towards them. She died due to a motor accident when Dorothea was only 9 years old. So she ended up moving through the foster care between Napa and Los Angeles, where allegedly she was sexually abused.
So would you say that the instability actually shaped her life later on? Because obviously we know what she's done.
Yeah, it certainly feels that it's laid the groundwork. What's interesting is that before any violence, There already been a pattern of deception, fraud, forgery, and small-scale scams. In 1945, when Dorothea was only 16 years old, she married her first husband, and they had 2 children. However, they didn't want to look after them, so they gave them up for adoption. One went through the foster care, and the other stayed with the family member. In 1948, the marriage broke down, and the same year, Dorothea was convicted for a fraud, running a fake check scam, basically, and she ended up serving 4 months in prison. In 1952, she got married again, and the couple moved to Sacramento. The marriage, unfortunately, broke down due to Dorothea's constant drinking, gambling, and affairs she had with other men. While she was in relationship with her second husband, in 1961, he told her to sign into psychiatric hospital when she'd been prescribed antipsychotics. And eventually, after all that, because she didn't get any better, they broke up in 1966. But it didn't stop there, guys, because 2 years later, Dorothea married her third husband. He was 16 years younger than her, so Dorothea was 39 at that time. But guess what? That marriage didn't survive at all. She kept his surname, Puente. She got involved in a sex work because she didn't have any money. It was basically just for a survival. And she was convicted previously, so it was very hard to find a proper job for her. But eventually, everything changed when she discovered a care working. Back in the day, it was very easy to get qualification as a carer. So she pursued that, she got her qualification, and she moved into the house when these crimes eventually happened. And she was helping people who already lived there, because that house was already a boarding house then. In 1982, Dorothea pled guilty to another fraud charge. She was forging documents and using fake signatures of her victims. So she was sent to prison in 1985 and she served 3 years. She was paroled and got back to the same house and habits.
I can't believe that. I just can't believe that people been already sentenced, even been to prison, and they're still allowed to do this shit.
I know.
Because from what I remember, because I've heard about this case but long time ago, she was quite nurturing towards people and the people she cared about. But obviously it was all bullshit.
I think it was a facade, or maybe she wanted to change. It's very hard to tell. But from looking at her life, obviously, as a child, teenager, and eventually an adult, everything was so unstable. So one might think, okay, she gets to her senses, she went back to prison, she served 3 years, maybe she just wanted to get change. She got the qualification and she decided to help the other human. But the second person might say that she just wanted to use them. But she started really providing the help for people that needed it. She provided the shelter, food, and sense of belonging. But unfortunately, it wasn't unconditional. The role of caretaker gave her access not just to people, but to her finances, to their trust, and their vulnerability. What's interesting, that Dorothea turned the house to unlicensed boarding house. This house didn't even belong to her. She was renting it from her close friends. And I feel once she had all of that, she basically was in position of total control.
Yeah, seems like she saw that she can have all that power above those people, and she just took advantage, and it looks like it was all about money.
Oh yeah, yeah, I believe so too.
What about her victims? Like, what was about them? Did she choose them somehow? How did she choose them? And
there was a very clear pattern, because she didn't go after the people who would immediately get missed. Her targets were the overlooked, the elderly, the disabled, those battling addiction, people society often forgets, unfortunately. But her first victim didn't fit that pattern at all. It began with a woman named Ruth Monroe. Ruth's son would later recall how it started. His mother met Dorothea through a mutual friend, Harold. These two women became close quite quickly, and Dorothea dreamt about opening a restaurant, but instead of using her own money, she pursued Ruth to spend her all savings. Every last bit of money went into that small cafe. Around the same time, Ruth married Harold, but he was unfortunately terminally ill with cancer, and he was full-time living in a hospital. So obviously, Ruth didn't want to stay alone, and she often said that. Dorothea had the perfect plan, and Dorothea had the perfect solution, and she said, well, let's move in with me. So Ruth did, back in April the 26th in 1982. 2 weeks later, Ruth died. Her son remembers those final days vividly. His mother was getting sicker by the hour, weak, fading, and strangely, always with a drink in her hand. However, she wasn't a drinker at all. Dorothea had been making it for her. Day by day, Ruth got worse, until she didn't recover. After her death, Dorothea claimed that it was a suicide, but her son didn't believe it for a second. Ruth had everything to live for. She had her lovely family, her grandchildren, and her own life. But unfortunately later it was ruled as a tragedy and no one suspected a thing.
That's so sick, man. She killed her own friend.
Yes.
And why? What for? I just don't understand. Like, seems like she had no fucking remorse about anything.
Yeah. It's crazy because it's not said she killed her, because at that stage Ruth committed suicide, right?
Oh yeah, but we know what we know, and
but if you will hear the trial later on, you'll be very frustrated with the answer I will tell you about Ruth. But at this stage, me and you personally, we think she killed her, right?
yeah, I definitely do.
Yeah.
When did people actually realize that she's done all that? Because obviously we know that nobody suspected the old grandma. So how did it happen?
Right, so let's go back to November 1988. A local social worker reports a man missing, Bert Montoya. He'd been diagnosed with schizophrenia, which unfortunately made him very vulnerable.
So, was that guy who was living in that boarding house, that Dorothea?
Yes, yeah, he was staying with Dorothea. And by this point, police had already heard few things about this place. Nothing solid, just enough to make them feel uneasy. So one morning, homicide detective John Cabrera and Terry Brown turn up, along with federal probation officer Jim Wilson. They had a tip about something strange ongoings happening in the back garden.
You say strange, what kind of strange thing?
That's the thing though, because it's never fully clear. It's just something that didn't feel right to whoever reported it. But anyway, they knock on the door and Dorothea answers, completely calm, smiling, and she goes, "I was expecting you."
What the fuck? Why would you say that?
Exactly. It completely throws them off. But Cabrera explains that they are here about Bert and asks if they can come in. Instead of just answering, she starts talking to Jim about her parole, casually admitting she's not even supposed to run the boarding house after getting out of prison in 1985. She'd been doing it anyway for 3 years.
Why the fuck would she say that? It's like, that's so strange to me. She pretty much says it all.
Exactly. However, she relied a lot on a charm. She made her seem very old, much older than she actually was, more fragile, even took her teeth out sometimes to look more harmless. So they search the house and find absolutely nothing. But then Jim asks if they can check the garden. And that's when she changes. She's trying to put them off, saying they should come back later, that she will arrange it, that they've got better things to be doing at that time.
That's pretty much says it all, doesn't it? Like, I hope they went anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So you're right. They totally ignored her and they started digging. She's just standing there watching them. At first, nothing. Then Jim's shovel hits something in the second hole. Cabrera jumps in, thinking it might just be a tree root. But as he clears it, he realizes it's not. It's human remains. So when they first confronted her about what they found, Dorothea just completely denies everything. She says she has no idea why the human remains are in her garden.
Of course she says that, like, so who is she blaming it on?
Well, other tenants. She starts saying, strange people live here. Maybe someone did this while I was in prison, just casually shifting it to anyone but herself. So John takes her down to the station for questioning because at this point they've called in a specialist team. They know it's gonna take days basically to go through that garden. And during the interview, John tries a bit of tactic. He says, I bet if we dig deeper, we will find more bodies. And Dorothea just looks at him, completely calm. Well, if you do, it wasn't me who put them there.
That's so fucked up, man. No emotion for those people whatsoever. Even if it wasn't her, doesn't matter. Like, you should still feel bad. That was the people who you cared for.
Exactly.
Cared for, obviously.
Yeah, we thought at that point, right, that she cared for, but yeah, no emotion at all. She was completely cold. But in November the 12th, in 1988, the news exploded. So reporters were everywhere. Crowds gathering outside where police were still digging. And somehow, despite bodies being found in her garden, they don't have enough evidence to charge her yet. So she got released.
So she's a free woman now. Fuck me.
I know, it's mad. So at that point, she even calls John over and asks, am I under arrest? And he's thinking, what a fucking strange thing to ask. So he basically says, well, no, you're not. And she goes, oh, this is all making me so nervous and I think I need to get a coffee. So he actually takes her, partially to get her away from the crowd. And there is a picture of actually him and her dressed in a very bright red jacket, being taken by him to the cafe. And she looks all distressed, quiet, like the fragile old woman she is. Anyway, he drops her off and just leaves her there.
She got fucking released, pretty much.
Yep, and she disappears. Gone, completely gone. Daily, she had no idea what's happened to Dorothea at this point. When police are starting digging, one of the officers suddenly says, we've got another one. And then, where's Dorothea? She's not in the cafe, she's on the run. They go back, speak to the staff. Someone remembers her going straight to a payphone, and that's it. Search begins. Meanwhile, back at the house, another twist. A man comes forward and says he helped dig the holes.
He just fucking admits that.
Yes. However, he says that Dorothea told him it was just a rubbish she needed burying. She paid him and he left. The digging continues for 3 days. The last body was found by the pavement on November the 14th, 3 days after the first body was found. Unfortunately, this body was missing its head, hands, and feet, and those parts were never found.
That's fucking horrible, man.
Unfortunately, it doesn't stop there. The more they dig, the more they find. 7 bodies in total, buried in that small garden.
7 bodies and nobody fucking looked for those people. How did nobody notice that quicker? I don't understand.
Yeah, that's the most chilling part, because there was no witnesses at all. All of that happening and no one saw a thing.
That's very disturbing. I just can't believe it.
I know, it's fucked up, but eventually they tracked her down nearly 400 miles away in LA. And get this, the man who reports her had been drinking with her in the pub earlier that day. He goes home, turns on the telly, and see this woman staring at him, you know, being wanted. So he calls the police, she gets arrested, and when they bring her into police station, she says to Cabrera, "I'm sorry." But when asked for a statement, she refuses.
So she didn't fucking admit it even then?
No.
Why did you flee then, bitch?
I know, right? I mean, come on, common sense, right? But yeah, this elderly woman is on the run. I just couldn't believe it. It's
I know,
just
it's like
crazy.
kind of so shocking that it's funny. Because
It is,
she's
yeah.
fucking a grandma.
Exactly. Especially when, you know, I told you earlier, she took her teeth out, she looked very fragile and everything. And this bitch is currently on the run, you know? It's very disturbing. Now the investigators had the job of identifying the bodies, which is very difficult because many of them were badly decomposed, no fingerprints, missing teeth, but one of the names they confirm, it's Bert Montoya, the man who started it all. And they figure out how they died. A lethal mix, sleeping pills, specifically prescribed to Dorothea, combined with alcohol, enough to shoot the body down.
She was fucking poisoning those people. That's fucking horrible, man.
That's what it points to.
It's slow death as well. It's just...
Yeah, it's horrific. But she was ultimately charged with the murders of 7 people. But unfortunately, it didn't stop there. There was also Ruth Monroe, a woman Dorothea had previously claimed committed suicide. Investigators no longer believed that story, and her death was added to the charges. And then there was another victim, a man who befriended her after leaving prison in 1985. He had driven her to her house and never seen again. When his body was first discovered, he was listed as John Doe, unidentified and forgotten. It wasn't until the news broke in 1988, exposing Dorothea crimes, that his family came forward. They had reported him missing years earlier, and suddenly everything fell into place. The unidentified body was him. Then comes the trial, and it's not straightforward at all, because they're trying to convince a jury that this sweet, innocent woman, well-liked, connected, is actually a serial killer.
I can see why people couldn't believe that she did it, but in the end of the day, to me and probably to that detective, it's fucking obvious.
It is, yeah. Unfortunately, she was well connected, so regardless she committed all those fraud charges, etc., at that point she changed, right? So she painted that picture that she's a very well-liked, vulnerable woman. She was quite important in the town she lived in. She knew very important people there. So now this well-liked, amazing, fragile woman is put on a trial, And this poor detective needs to convince them that she's a serial killer. So in February 1993, Dorothea, now 64 years old, admits to burying the bodies and taking their benefits and social security money, but still claims that she didn't kill them. In August 26, 1993, after deliberating for 5 months, the jury finds her guilty only of 3 murders and deadlocks the rest.
Why only 3? That doesn't fucking make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all. Investigators were completely shocked because it was same method, same drug, same pattern, and it was only down to one jury who didn't believe this poor, fragile woman committed all those crimes. But in the end, on the 10th of December 1993, she was sentenced to life without parole. But there is also this lingering question, I guess. Did she really acted alone?
Yeah, because how does a fucking grandma does all this crap on her own?
Yeah.
I just can't believe that guy that you said earlier, yeah, that he was burying them, but she was telling him that it was rubbish, yeah?
Well, he wasn't actually burying them. He was digging the holes in the garden. So that was his job he got paid for. She told him she needs to bury the rubbish inside, but he actually didn't see this rubbish.
Yeah.
But he just admits that in case, obviously, they will find out that he was there and trying to put him to, to the crimes. But yes, it's just very crazy because even when you're trying, as a normal young woman, trying to move, 50 kilos, 80 kilos, it's quite hard. So how fucking over 60 years old woman is burying the people by herself? It's quite weird.
I think she was obviously quite fit. She was just pretending to be that elderly woman. I'm not saying she wasn't old, but I think she was quite fit to be able to do all this shit.
Yeah.
And she was just pretending when it's convenient for her that she's so fragile and stuff.
Yeah, but also some people believe that the other tenants helped her because it was out of fear. They rather stay alive than be killed by Dorothea.
Which I don't blame them for that. Like,
yeah.
If I see that fucking so many people she's murdered,
yeah,
I would be afraid for my life. If I was vulnerable, I couldn't seek help or anything because she's got my money, she's got everything that I own.
Exactly.
It's so fucked up.
It's crazy because at this stage, unfortunately, we never gonna know what actually happened, who buried it, who did it, but
she murdered them. That's what we know.
But even in prison, she denies it. In 2004, she even releases a cookbook. Get ready, Cooking with a Serial Killer. Like, what the actual fuck?
Some people are just so unhinged, man.
I know.
It
just shows you no remorse at this stage. This fucking grandma releases a cooking book. Like, what the fuck? And yeah, a few years later, in 2008, she agreed to meet with a journalist called Martin, and he couldn't quite believe it. Sitting across from now 71 years old serial killer, a woman convicted of such horrific crimes, and at first, she seems completely at ease. Polite, chatty, happy to make a small talk. However, when he started questioning her about the murders, everything shifted. She looked him straight into the eyes and insisted she was innocent, but it was no hesitation, no emotion. It was just pure denial. I don't know. I think she did all of it.
I think so too. I just think that she was so calculated. She knew she wants the money, because obviously we know she's been previously charged and everything. It was just an easy way for her to get money.
Definitely.
And she was gonna do everything to get it.
Yeah, even when you look at her relationship, right? She was married at 16, which is crazy for me, but different times, I guess. She had 2 children that she gave up for adoption. Maybe at that point he just was not capable of looking after them. So fair enough, I'm glad they went elsewhere and, probably still live a happy life. But yeah, her following 2 marriages, she didn't give a fuck about them. She was still cheating, gambling, drinking, do you know what I mean? So it just shows you that remorse, as you mentioned, there was absolutely none.
Yeah.
None.
It was all about the money.
It was. But in March 27, in 2011, Dorothea died in prison of natural causes, taking her secrets to the grave.
Natural causes, man. She murdered those people by poisoning them, and that's fucking horrific death. They were probably in so much pain, with their organs shutting down and all that.
Yeah.
And she just died like in prison, probably.
Yeah,
in her
happy.
sleep or whatever.
Well, she was happy. She was reading a book, making a cooking book. I'm gonna research it actually. How much does it cost?
I'm sorry, but for older person to be in prison, she probably had a good life.
Oh, definitely.
There, because she had the food, she had everything that she needed for.
Yeah.
She probably just
she didn't suffer because obviously she was convicted being so old at that stage. So she had her end quite normal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She wasn't abused or anything in the prison. She had shelter, she had food, and probably still pretending that she's this sweet grandmother that everyone is surprised. What the fuck this poor woman doing in prison, So yeah, it's a very crazy case we talked about today. When I researched it originally, I just couldn't believe it. I didn't hear about it, but we spoke with Diliana prior to recording this, and she heard the story about her already, which was quite good.
I heard about it, ages ago, and I've watched like some documentaries and stuff, but I just couldn't believe that an elderly woman, can do this shit on her own.
Yeah.
But I guess when you want something very, very much, you can do it. Doesn't matter.
It is. That's the point. But yes, thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you so much for quite big following we're having recently. But yes, please do like and subscribe us. Let us know how we're doing. Remember, we are here every Sunday. And if you've got any questions, perhaps maybe new cases that you want us to cover, please do let us know. So for now, take care, guys, and we will see you next time.
Bye.